In the previous video, we spoke a little about Veda Vyasa, on who gets the title and how, and the current Veda Vyasa, who goes by the name of Krsna Dvaipayana. In this video, we will speak about the birth of sage Krsna Dvaipayana and how the Srimad Bhagavatam came to be compiled. Also, according to the Vishnu Purana, Ashwatthama, the son of Drona, will become the next sage Veda Vyasa and will divide the one Veda in the 29th Mahayuga of the 7th Manvantara, which is the next Mahayuga after this one that we are currently in. We will get to who Drona and Ashwatthama are in later videos when we explore the Mahabharata in detail. Sage Krsna Dvaipayana is also said to have narrated the Mahabharata, and his scribe Angkor Wat is said to have written it down. At 100,000 verses, the Mahabharata is the longest epic poem ever written. Some believe that Angkor Wat was Lord Ganesha in disguise, but many disregard this notion entirely and call it an interpolation and an insult to Lord Ganesha, the Lord of Wisdom. We will get to Lord Ganesha and his story later too. Angkor Wat is consequently the name of the largest religious structure in the world and is located in Cambodia and was also recently added as one of the wonders of the world. Sage Krsna Dvaipayana was also the biological father of Dhritarashtra and Pandu, whose sons the Kauravas and the Pandavas were the chief characters in the story of the Mahabharata. The Pandavas were not the biological sons of Pandu, but we will get to that story later too when we explore the Mahabharata in detail. Sage Dvaipayana fathers Dhritarashtra and Pandu with his stepbrother's wives at the behest of his mother after the passing of his stepbrother without leaving behind a rightful heir to their worldly empire. You might question if this was morally right for him to do. He didn't have much choice in the matter because his stepbrother had died without leaving behind heirs to their empire, and the other brothers weren't viable for reasons we will get to in later videos when we explore the Mahabharata in detail. So he was the only one willing to father offspring with his stepbrother's queens, and on top of that, his mother ordered him to, so he couldn't really refuse because of his promise to her as a young boy. The famed Bhagavad Gita is also contained in the Bhishma Parva, which comprises chapters 23 to 40 of Book 6 of the Mahabharata. So Krsna Dvaipayana is also technically the author of the Bhagavad Gita, although it is the spoken word of Sri Krishna, said to be God in human form, and it was spoken on the battlefield of Kurukshetra some 6,000 something years ago. We will get to the Bhagavad Gita and the character of Sri Krishna in later videos when we explore the massive Mahabharata in detail. Coming to his birth, sage Krsna Dvaipayana is the son of Satyavati and the Maharishi Parashara. A sage is the recent unification term for all types of rishis, which included the regular rishis, Raja rishis, Maharishis, Deva rishis, and Brahma rishis. Swami Vivekananda described rishis as the seers of thought, who had attained a high level of spiritual realization. We will explore the different classes of rishis and also the character of Swami Vivekananda in a later video. But for now, to keep it simple, let's just call all types of rishis as sages. Satyavati was also the grandmother of Dhritarashtra and Pandu, about whom we talked about briefly earlier. Parashara was a sage and the author of many ancient texts. He is accredited as the author of the first Purana, the Vishnu Purana, before his son Vyasa or Krsna Dvaipayana wrote it in its present form. Sage Parashara was the grandson of the sage Vashishta and the son of the sage Shakti. There are several texts which give him reference as the author/speaker. The various texts attributed to sage Parashara are given in reference to Parashara being the speaker to his student. Sage Vashishta is one of the 7 chief sages in a Manvantara, or one of the Saptarishis, and will dig deeper into those guys and sage Vashishta himself in later videos. We will also dig deeper into the stories of sage Parashara and his father sage Shakti in later videos. Coming back to the birth of Krsna Dvaipayana, during her youth, Satyavati was a fisherwoman of the Kaivarta clan or the fisherman clan, and she used to ferry people across the river to help her father. One day, she helped sage Parashara to cross the river Yamuna. This Yamuna, spoken of in the texts, is not the same river in modern-day India. In fact, most of the places in modern-day India are not the same ones that the texts speak of according to my knowledge. I will justify this reasoning in a later video. On their trip across the river, sage Parashara was enchanted by Satyavati's beauty and wanted an heir from her. Initially, Satyavati did not agree, saying that if others would see them, then her purity would be questioned because she's not married to him and can therefore not sleep with him either. Sage Parashara, using his yogic or spiritual powers, created a secret place in the bushes of a nearby island in the Yamuna river and covered it with a blanket of thick fog. This would prevent them from being found, and Satyavati's purity would not be questioned because nobody from her clan who looked for her on the island would find her in the fog and know that she had conceived without being married. Also, yoga simply means union with God or the supreme unfathomable spirit, and it is stated by the wise that as one loses their own will and ego and starts merging themselves with the Supreme Father, they will be able to develop supernatural abilities or siddhis and will be able to perform divine miracles that seem as unfathomable as the Supreme Father or God Himself to everyone else. In truth, these supernatural abilities are not supernatural at all and are completely natural and are gifts given by the Father or God, which we have lost our entitlement to in the present age due to our fallen and sinful nature. Coming back to the story, Satyavati then conceived on the island in the Yamuna river and gave birth to a son. Parashara named him Krsna Dvaipayana, referring to his dark complexion and birthplace. Satyavati stayed on the island for a little longer until the baby boy had grown, and he promised his mother that he would come to her whenever she needed him. Sage Parashara then used his yogic powers again to restore Satyavati's virginity and then gifted her an enchanting smell and left with his son to train him into becoming a sage like himself. Satyavati kept this incident a secret, not telling even King Shantanu, whom she was married to later. Shantanu's sons were Vichitravirya and Chitrangada through Queen Satyavati. They were the stepbrothers of sage Krsna Dvaipayana, and it was King Vichitravirya's queens with whom sage Krsna Dvaipayana had Dhritarashtra and Pandu at the orders of Queen Satyavati, who used this promise to her as a boy to call upon him whenever she needed him, and apparently she needed him to have children with her daughters-in-law. Sage Krsna Dvaipayana also had a son named Shuka, who was his spiritual successor and heir. As per the Skanda Purana, Vyasa married Vatika, also called Pinjala, who was the daughter of a sage named Jabali. It is described that Vyasa's union with her produced his heir, Shukadeva Gosvami, who repeated everything that he heard, thus receiving the name Shuka, meaning little parrot. There is an alternative story to his birth in the heavily interpolated Devi Bhagavata Purana, but we will be rejecting that version because it does not make much sense, since semen falling on some sticks cannot give birth to a baby. Some of the Puranas and other texts have been corrupted, and I will be covering the most corrupted ones last. My biological father always says that none of the old stories can be trusted unless there's a valid documentation and historical records to prove it, but how do we know that the so-called historical records we have today are completely accurate and no inferences have been made to create a story, or in other words, the history that we know of today? So in a similar way, I will be using this channel to explain all the stories of different religions and make inferences to make them make sense in today's individual. Coming back to sage Krsna Dvaipayana, the author of the Srimad Bhagavatam, I will be coming back to him later since he's a recurring character in many stories, including events that happened just 1,000 years ago, since he's supposedly still alive today. How is he still alive even after so many millennia? You'd be surprised to hear that there are many individuals in this universe, and maybe even in our present world, with really long lifespans. We will get to how you could achieve those long lifespans too in later videos. The reason why I spoke this much about the author of the Srimad Bhagavatam was to tie him to his spiritual successor and son, Shukadeva Goswami, a key character and one of the narrators of the Srimad Bhagavatam. I will officially introduce him in the next video and give some background on the setting of the Srimad Bhagavatam, where it is being narrated and why.